Which conspiracy theory makes too much sense to be ignored? I worked at a Skechers in college. They had music CDs sent in by corporate, and it was the only music you could play at the store, and you could only play the most recent CD they had sent. The names of the shoes were all random words: caviar, keepsakes, vigor, cascades, bruiser. These are all current shoe names of things I just found on their website. Since I don't recall any of the ones from when I worked there, it was around 2009 to 2010, and the music CDs that we would get would always have songs that included the names of the shoes somewhere in them. It was never blatant, but almost always, if you listened closely, you could find a shoe name somewhere in the lyrics of the songs that played. One of the songs that was on every single CD they sent, "I Can't Wait" by New Shows. I love that goddamn song too, BTW. All my fellow coworkers thought I was crazy when I would point this out to them, but to this day I'm convinced that Skechers corporate had some poor bastard combing through music each month to find appropriate pop songs that had the shoe names in the lyrics. Edit. To all the people saying variations on this is obvious. Marketing 101. Go look through the rest of the comments. There's no shortage of people who don't seem willing to believe that Skechers would actually do this, even on Reddit. So maybe it seems obvious to you, but a lot of average people aren't aware of how deep marketing can go. That the pants industry and the purse industry are working together to keep women's pockets small in order to force us to buy purses. Jokes on them. I use a backpack. You fell right into the jacket industry's trap. Big trap wins again. Dwayne Johnson and The Rock might be the same person. Wait a minute. Rock. Rolling Stone. Are you from the recording industry? Dwayne. Jagger. Dwayne the Benny Blanco Rock Johnson. Color film was patented by Edward Raymond Turner in 1899, but the exact process was purposefully kept in the dark up until 1935 because concerns how the public would demand color pictures in newspapers, as color pictures would be the norm. If you look up the history of newspaper color printing and the development of color film, you will see there are a lot of coincidences. But the exact process was purposefully kept in the dark up until 1935. Well, of course it was. You wouldn't want to expose the film. But seriously, this one is kind of interesting. If true, I don't think they correctly anticipated how much people would care. Daily newspapers in my fairly large metropolitan area printed only black and white photos until around the early 2000s. I don't recall any public demands for color. But I also didn't care, so maybe there was a big campaign in support of color photos that I just missed. Dr. David Kelly did not commit suicide mere days after exposing Tony Blair's lies about Saddam's weapons capability. He was murdered. He accidentally, tragically cut his head off while shaving. I thought it was the classic 2 bullets to the back of the head method of suicide. The above is a Blackadder reference to the birth of modern parliamentary democracy. Whilst I get up was being humorous, there is a certain beautiful irony in its application to a modern British government. Blackadder is both the constituency's returning officer, whose predecessor died when he accidentally brutally stabbed himself in the stomach while shaving, and voter, whose predecessor accidentally brutally cut his head off while combing his hair. Baldrick is made an MP in a landslide victory. The Taylor Swift-Tom Hiddleston relationship was faked for a surprise album release that got cancelled after the Kim/Kanye feud. The initial photos released of Tom and Taylor came from a paparazzi source that had never existed before and only ever distributed/sold photos of the two of them and then disappeared after they broke it off. I think a lot of celebrity relationships are publicity stunts. Who would do that? I love Jenna Maroney. Kimiko-chan is a Bassina's associate. Ugh, you're being a real non-pillow. There are chemicals in the water and they are turning the freaking frogs gay. Alex Jones got mocked for this one, and to be fair he does say a lot of stupid crap, so most people aren't inclined to take him seriously. But while he probably phrased it poorly, it's completely true that chemicals in the environment are messing with the hormones of animals, and probably people too. Here's a National Geographic article from 2004 saying much the same thing in a more measured tone. No one laughed at that. It is worth mentioning, however, that this isn't some innocent side effect of the revolutionary invention that is hormonal birth control. Rather, this is an insidious conspiracy by the globalist vampire lizard people to destroy the symbol of the resistance, Peep the Frog. If the National Geographic were a more reputable serious source of journalism, they would have covered this information. That they did not should be regarded as sufficient evidence, in my opinion, to warrant concern as to whether or not they are in collusion with the lizard people. I'm not saying it's true, and I'm not saying it isn't true, but the whole theory that Russia sent other people to space before Yuri, but they weren't able to come back, so they died in space. I think it's an interesting theory. Similar to the theory that says that Yuri may have intentionally suicided by causing his plane to crash. Again, no clue if they are true or not, but interesting nonetheless. Edit. Never thought this would get so much attention. Thanks. Also, thank you for being respectful in this debate. It makes me happy to know we can discuss a theory without it turning into a rage competition. Honestly, that theory is so fucking scary, because you know Russia won't say shit. Also, that somewhere in space there are floating and decaying corpses of lost cosmonauts. I would have thought they would burnt up in the atmosphere by now. Probably burned up in the atmosphere. Orbits decay surprisingly quickly. Explain the moon then, smart guy. You are correct. The moon is slowly slipping away from us, and by doing so, it's also slowing the rotation of the earth. Which means the tides will stop, which means the oceans will stagnate and die, which means all life on earth could die. Way to go, smartass. You murdered the planet. Michael Jordan serving a suspension on the down low from the NBA when he went to baseball. The suspension being for gambling. I have my own follow-up conspiracy theory that Jordan's image means so much to modern American athletic storylines and narratives that the big media companies would never look into a story like this to confirm its veracity, nor would they report on it in that case. I believe this one. When you look at how ultra-competitive Jordan was, I mean there never has been anyone more competitive, and we are to believe that he just decided, yeah cool, I'm giving up this basketball thing and go play baseball. Come on. Obvious what went down. He was also a competitive compulsive gambler. He played cards with teammates for real money on planes and buses, and he'd go play the low stakes games with the lesser paid players so he could take their money too. Let's get real here. We all know that the Olsen twins are just one girl moving back and forth really fast, right? Edit. Well, this blew up in ways I didn't see coming. Found John Oliver's account. There are 4 of them. So says Kimmy Schmidt. Elon Musk is just an alien trying to go home. Close to correct. He is actually a contact/special circumstances agent preparing us for introduction into the culture. One could only hope. Literally my biggest fantasy. Michael Jackson's weird behavior and strange health problems can all be attributed to his being chemically castrated. His whole thing about being a kid. Yeah, he was literally a kid. He was chemically castrated to keep his voice high-pitched. This explains his lack of secondary sex characteristics, and wouldn't be all that strange considering all the other shit his father put him through to ensure the success of the Jackson 5. There have been multiple books written on this topic, and it seems very plausible to me. Except I personally know an old musician, won't name drop, who claims that when he would call Michael Jackson on the phone, Michael would answer with that affected falsetto that he's known for. Then when he realized who he was talking to, he code switched right over to sounding like an adult black man. I'm a rando on the internet, and I don't intend to give any proof of who told me that, but I consider him to be a reliable source on this. Michael Jackson was a weird dude, but the voice was just an effect. There are also plenty of videos on YouTube of Michael Jackson speaking at concerts in a perfectly normal voice. Yeah, the video evidence is all there. Dude grew up in front of a camera. He doesn't have anywhere near the same speaking and singing voice he did as a child. Even on his highest notes, his entire tone shifts dramatically after, you guessed it, puberty hits. Someone pointed out there's really popular songs he did as a kid that he never sang as an adult, probably because the difference would be too jarring. That Brittany Murphy and her husband were murdered. I forget the exact details, but I think Brittany was working on a documentary with a whistleblower that worked with a certain part of the government. Then she passed away, followed by her husband shortly after, both from pneumonia. I think it was actually toxic mold. Which sounds even fisher really. Edit. I was unaware that the coroner's report refuted this. I guess I'm out of the loop. Does it? They both sound like good explanations for why two people who live together would die so close together. That's what they want you to think. Open your eyes, sheeple.